Story 1. For context, I'm a working parent with a fairly demanding job as an accountant. My boss is understanding about my need to pick up my kid from school, but I still have to make up any time I miss. This means I'm always rushing to get back to the office after pickup to finish my workday. The school has a strict policy about the car line you pull up. They bring your kid out, you drive away. Simple, efficient, and necessary when you have hundreds of kids getting picked up. I've been doing this routine for 3 years now. Most parents understand the drill. We're all busy, we all have places to be, and none of us want to sit in a hot car line for longer than necessary. There's an unspoken rule: keep the line moving. Last Thursday was a particularly stressful day. I had a major client meeting in the morning that ran long, which pushed back all my other tasks. I barely managed to break away for school pickup, knowing I'd have to return to the office afterward and probably work late. I got to the school just in time and took my place in the car line. Everything was moving smoothly until I reached the front of the line. The car ahead of me had already collected their kid, but they weren't moving. No big deal, maybe they were helping with a seatbelt or picking up something that fell. I waited patiently. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. Through their rear window, I could see the driver was on their phone, completely oblivious to the fact that they were holding up the entire line. Kids were being brought out and having to wait because the line couldn't move forward. Teachers were giving me questioning looks, as if I was the one causing the delay. After waiting for a full 7 minutes, yes, I timed it, I gave a gentle, quick honk. Not an angry blaring horn, just a polite, "Hey, we're all waiting here" tap. That's when all hell broke loose. The car door flew open, and out stormed a woman, let's call her Karen. Her face was already red as she marched toward my car. I rolled down my window, thinking maybe she needed help with something. Big mistake. Karen, screaming, "How dare you honk at me? Who do you think you are?" Me, confused, "I'm sorry, but you've been sitting there for several minutes, and the line can't move." Karen, cutting me off, "Do you have any idea what you've done? My child is extremely fragile and needs slow transitions. We have a routine." I glanced past her and saw her kid already buckled in the back seat, playing on a tablet with headphones on, seemingly unaware of any disruption. Me, I understand, but there are 20 cars waiting behind us, and the teachers can't bring out more kids until the line moves. Karen, getting louder, "I don't care about other people's schedules. My child has special needs and requires special accommodations. The school knows this." Me, "Maybe you could pull into one of the parking spots if you need extra time. That way the line can keep moving." This reasonable suggestion apparently pushed her over the edge. Karen, "Don't you tell me how to parent my child. You have no idea what we go through." And then, "I still can't believe this happened." She kicked my front bumper hard with her foot. She was wearing some kind of heavy boots, and there was an audible thud followed by a visible dent in my bumper. Me, "Did you just kick my car? That's damage to private property." Karen, smugly, "Prove it. It's your word against mine." What she didn't realize was that the school had installed security cameras in the pickup area the previous summer after some fender benders, and a school security officer was already walking briskly toward us, having witnessed the whole thing. Security officer, "Is there a problem here?" Karen, immediately switching to victim mode, "Yes. This person honked aggressively at me and my fragile child. They know we have special permission to take our time." The security officer looked at me. Me, I waited over 7 minutes before giving a single short honk. Then she came out and kicked my car. You can see the dent right there. I pointed to the fresh dent in my bumper. Security officer, to Karen, "Ma'am, did you exit your vehicle?" Karen, "I had to. This person was harassing us." Security officer, "And did you make physical contact with their vehicle?" Karen, scoffing, "It was barely a tap. They're exaggerating." The security officer sighed and spoke into his radio. A few minutes later, the vice principal arrived. By this point, a teacher had come to my window to ask if I wanted them to bring my kid to the car since we were stuck. "Vice principal, what's going on here?" The security officer explained the situation, and Karen interrupted multiple times with her version of events. The vice principal held up a hand to stop her. "Vice principal, let's move both vehicles to the side so the line can continue. We'll sort this out in the office." "Karen, I'm not going anywhere. I know my rights." "Vice principal, firmly, either move your car to the side voluntarily, or we'll have to call the police about the property damage. Your choice." That seemed to get through to her. She stomped back to her car and aggressively pulled into a side parking spot. I followed the vice principal's direction and parked nearby. My kid was brought over, confused about why we weren't just driving away like normal. In the office, the vice principal had us sit in separate areas while they reviewed the security footage. After about 20 minutes, they called me in first. "Vice principal, I've reviewed the video, and it clearly shows you waiting patiently for over 7 minutes before a brief honk. It also clearly shows her kicking your vehicle with significant force. Would you like a copy of the footage for insurance purposes?" Me: "Yes, please." "Will there be any consequences for this behavior?" Vice principal: "We take safety in our car line very seriously. While I can't discuss specific disciplinary actions for other parents, I can assure you this will be addressed appropriately." When I left the office, Karen was being called in. The look on her face when she saw me getting a thumb drive with the security footage was priceless. The next morning, I received an email from the principal. Without naming any names, it informed all parents that, following an incident in the car line, we want to remind everyone of proper protocols. It reiterated that parents needing extra time should use the designated parking spots rather than holding up the line, and that any physical aggression or property damage on school grounds will result in immediate suspension of car line privileges. A week later, I noticed Karen's car in the visitor parking lot. She was walking across the parking lot to pick up her kid from the office, apparently for the next month. When she saw me driving through the now smoothly moving car line, her face turned red again, but she quickly looked away. My bumper cost $340 to repair, but her insurance covered it after they received the security footage. Sometimes karma has a way of working itself out in the pickup line. Story 2. My wife and I had been looking forward to our weekend picnic at the community park for days. After being cooped up with our 2-month-old daughter all week, we both needed some fresh air and a change of scenery. Our daughter is exclusively breastfed, and my wife had gotten into a good routine with feeding her. She always brought a light muslin shawl to drape over her shoulder for privacy, even though in our state, breastfeeding in public is legally protected with or without a cover. The park was bustling that Saturday afternoon, families playing frisbee, couples walking their dogs, and children racing around the playground equipment. We found a nice bench under a maple tree that gave us some shade and spread out our picnic blanket nearby. We had just finished eating our sandwiches when our daughter started showing signs that she was hungry. My wife adjusted herself on the bench, got our daughter into position, and draped the light shawl over her shoulder and the baby. You couldn't see anything, just a baby-shaped lump under a piece of fabric. I was gathering our sandwich wrappers to throw away when I noticed a woman staring at us from about 20 feet away. She was standing next to a man who seemed to be deliberately looking in the opposite direction. After I tossed our trash in a nearby bin, I returned to find the woman now standing directly in front of my wife, arms crossed and foot tapping impatiently. I quickened my pace. "Woman, excuse me, but you need to stop doing that right now." My wife looked up, confused. My wife: "I'm sorry?" "Woman, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is a public park with children around. You can't just expose yourself like that." I stepped in beside my wife, who was still calmly feeding our daughter under the shawl. Me: "My wife isn't exposing anything. She's feeding our baby under a cover." The woman rolled her eyes dramatically. "Woman, that doesn't matter. My husband and I were trying to enjoy a nice walk, and now he can't even look in this direction because of what you're doing." She gestured toward the man who was standing awkwardly several yards away, staring intently at his phone. My wife, I'm sorry if you're uncomfortable, but our daughter needs to eat. We're being discreet, and I have a legal right to feed her here. Woman, legal right? That's ridiculous. What about our right to enjoy the park without being subjected to this? There are bathrooms over there. Go do that in private where no one has to see it. I felt my blood pressure rising but tried to stay calm. My wife is not going to feed our baby in a public bathroom. Would you want to eat your lunch sitting on a toilet? Woman, that's different, and you know it. This is indecent exposure. By this point, her voice had risen enough that people nearby were turning to look at us. A family with 3 kids who had been having a picnic about 15 feet away was watching the interaction. The mother had a phone in her hand and appeared to be recording. My wife remained remarkably composed, adjusting the shawl to make sure our daughter stayed covered and comfortable. My wife, I understand you might be uncomfortable, but I'm not doing anything wrong or illegal. Our daughter will be done eating in a few minutes, and then we'll be on our way. Woman, this is absolutely unacceptable. You're just being stubborn and inconsiderate. She turned and called out to her husband. Woman, honey, come over here and tell them how uncomfortable they're making you. The man reluctantly approached, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Husband, look, it's really not a big deal. Woman, not a big deal? You said you couldn't even look in this direction. Tell them what you told me. The husband sighed deeply. Husband, what I said was that I noticed a woman was breastfeeding, so I was being respectful by not looking that way. I never said it bothered me. The woman's mouth fell open in shock. Woman, that's not what you meant, and you know it. You said it was distracting. Husband, no, I said I was deliberately not looking so I wouldn't accidentally make her uncomfortable. There's a difference. The woman's face was turning redder by the second. She turned back to us. Woman, well, I find it disgusting. There are children here. At that moment, the mother who had been recording approached us with her phone still raised. Mother from nearby, excuse me, but my children are right over there, and none of them even noticed what was happening until you started making a scene. In fact, they're now asking me why that lady is yelling at a mom feeding her baby. Woman, are you filming me? That's an invasion of privacy. Delete that right now. Mother from nearby, we're in a public park. There's no expectation of privacy here, just like there's no expectation that a nursing mother should hide in a bathroom. Another person, an older gentleman who had been reading on a bench nearby, stood up and walked over. Older gentleman, young lady, I've lived in this neighborhood for 40 years, and I've never seen such a display of rudeness. That mother is doing nothing wrong. Woman, oh, so everyone's against me now. This is ridiculous. She looked around and realized several people were watching, a few with phones out. Her husband put his hand on her arm. Husband, let's just go. This isn't worth it. She yanked her arm away. Woman, no, I'm not leaving until they leave or go somewhere private. This is a family park. The mother who had been recording smiled. Mother from nearby, yes, it is a family park. For all families, including ones with babies who need to eat. My wife, who had been quietly feeding our daughter through this entire ordeal, suddenly spoke up. My wife, our daughter is finished now, so this whole argument is moot. But I want you to know that I feed her wherever she needs to be fed, and I'll be back to this park again. The woman seemed momentarily stunned into silence as my wife carefully adjusted her clothing and stood up, cradling our now sleeping daughter. I started packing up the rest of our things, and the crowd began to disperse. The woman's husband was practically dragging her away at this point, but she couldn't resist one parting shot. Woman, you'll be hearing about this. I'm on the Homeowners Association board, and we don't tolerate this kind of behavior in our community. My wife and I exchanged glances. We happen to live in the same Hoa community, though we'd never seen this woman at any of the meetings we occasionally attended. 2 weeks later, we received a copy of a letter that had been sent to the woman by the Hoa board. Apparently, several videos of the incident had made their way to social media and gone viral in our local community groups. One of the board members recognized her and brought it up at their meeting. The letter was a formal warning about harassing neighbors and bringing negative attention to the community. It cited the HOA's Code of Conduct and Community Harmony policies. The woman and her husband still live in our neighborhood, but now she goes out of her way to avoid us when we see them at community events or at the park. My wife continues to feed our daughter wherever and whenever she needs to eat, and so far, no one else has had the audacity to suggest she do otherwise. The viral videos had an unexpected positive outcome, too. Our local park now has a designated nursing station with a comfortable bench under a shade structure, although the park director made it very clear that mothers are still welcome to breastfeed anywhere in the park they choose. It's a small victory, but an important one for all the parents in our community. Story 3. I've always been a pretty average bowler. Nothing special, just enough skill to avoid embarrassing myself completely. But what I lack in talent, I make up for in enthusiasm. My friends and I have been doing monthly bowling nights for almost 2 years now, and it's become our favorite tradition. For my 30th birthday, my friends decided we should take our bowling night to the next level. My best friend contacted Strikes and Spares, our local bowling alley, 3 weeks in advance to reserve 2 lanes for our group of 8 people. They even paid extra for the birthday package that included 2 hours of bowling, shoe rentals, a pitcher of beer per lane, and a small cake with my name on it. I was genuinely touched by the effort. Between work stress and family obligations, it had been a rough year, and I was looking forward to just relaxing and having fun with the people who mattered most to me. We arrived at the bowling alley at 7 p.m. sharp for our 7:15 reservation. The place was busy, but not packed, typical for a Friday night. The front desk attendant checked us in, and we headed to our assigned lanes, 7 and 8, perfect middle of the alley spots. We had just finished putting on our bowling shoes and entering our names in the scoring system when I noticed a woman marching toward us with a teenage boy trailing behind her. The woman looked to be in her mid-40s with an expensive-looking haircut and designer clothes that seemed out of place in a bowling alley. The boy, probably around 15, was carrying a custom bowling bag and looking increasingly uncomfortable. The woman stopped directly in front of our lanes and put her hands on her hips. "Woman, excuse me, but you need to move to different lanes. We need lanes 7 and 8. My friends and I exchanged confused glances. I decided to respond since it was my birthday. "I'm sorry, but we reserved these lanes weeks ago. They're ours for the next 2 hours. The woman laughed as if I'd said something ridiculous. "Woman, I don't think you understand. My son practices on these exact lanes every Friday. He's training to become a professional bowler, and these lanes have the perfect oil pattern for his throw." Her son was now staring at the floor, his face turning bright red. My friend who had made the reservation stepped forward. "Friend, we booked these lanes 3 weeks ago for a birthday celebration. Maybe there was a scheduling mix-up." The woman scoffed. "Woman, there's no mix-up. We bowl here every Friday night on these lanes. Everyone knows my son. Tell them who you are." The boy mumbled something inaudible, clearly mortified. "Woman, speak up. Tell them who you are." "Son, Mom, please. It's fine. We can use different lanes." "Woman, no, it's not fine. You need consistent training conditions." By this point, our entire group had stopped what we were doing to watch this unfold. The birthday excitement was quickly fading. "Look, I'm sorry, but we have a confirmed reservation. If you want to check with management." "Woman, I don't need to check with anyone. My son is the regional junior champion, and he needs these specific lanes. Do you want to be responsible for ruining his career?" Before I could respond, one of the staff members approached, likely drawn by the escalating volume of our conversation. "Staff, is there a problem here?" "Woman, yes, these people are in our lanes. My son needs lanes 7 and 8 for his training." The staff member looked confused. "Staff, let me check our system." The woman stood there triumphantly as the staff member tapped on the computer tablet he was carrying. Staff: "Ma'am, I don't see any reservation under your name for tonight." Woman: "We don't need a reservation. We're regulars. Everyone here knows us." The staff member looked uncomfortable. Staff: "I'm sorry, but these lanes were reserved 3 weeks ago for a birthday party. I can offer you lanes 11 and 12, which are open right now." The woman's face turned an alarming shade of red. Woman: "This is unacceptable. Get me the manager right now." The staff member sighed and radioed for the manager. We all stood there awkwardly, my friends giving me apologetic looks. This was definitely not how I envisioned spending the first 30 minutes of my birthday celebration. A few minutes later, a tall man in a stripes and spares polo shirt approached. "Manager, I'm the manager. What seems to be the problem?" The woman immediately launched into her explanation. Woman: "My son is a future professional bowler. He trains on lanes 7 and 8 every Friday because they have the optimal conditions for his technique. These people are refusing to move to different lanes." The manager listened patiently, then turned to his tablet. Manager: "Ma'am, do you have a reservation for tonight?" Woman: "We don't need one. Ask anyone who works here. We're here every Friday." The manager scrolled through his tablet. Manager: "I've checked our records for the past 6 months, and I don't see any regular bookings under your name or your son's name. However, I do see that these lanes were reserved 3 weeks ago for a birthday celebration." He turned to us. Manager: "Is this your group?" My friend nodded. Friend: "Yes, I made the reservation. It's for my friend's 30th birthday." The manager turned back to the woman. Manager: "As you can see, these lanes are properly reserved. I can offer you lanes 11 and 12, which have a very similar oil pattern, if that's your concern." Woman: "This is ridiculous. Do you know how much money we spend here? My son is going to be famous someday, and when reporters ask him about his local bowling alley, he's going to tell them how terribly you treated him." The manager remained calm. Manager: "I understand you're upset, but we have a reservation system for a reason. It wouldn't be fair to the customers who planned ahead to ask them to move." The woman was now practically vibrating with anger. Woman: "I want to speak to the owner. This is discrimination against athletes." As she continued to rant, her son tapped her on the shoulder. Son: "Mom, please stop. You're embarrassing me. We can use the other lanes." Woman: "No, these people need to understand who you are and what you're going to become." Son: "Mom, I'm not even that good. I just like bowling." The woman gasped as if her son had slapped her. Woman: "How dare you say that? After all the money we've spent on coaches and equipment." The manager, seeing an opportunity, gently intervened. Manager: "Ma'am, lanes 11 and 12 are ready for you now if you'd like to take them. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave the premises." The woman stared at him in disbelief. Woman: "Are you threatening to throw me out? Do you know who my husband is?" Manager: "I'm simply enforcing our reservation policy. Your options are to accept the alternative lanes or leave." The woman looked around, seemingly expecting someone to jump to her defense. When no one did, she grabbed her purse. Woman: "This place is going downhill. We're never coming back here again." As she stormed toward the exit, her son stayed behind for a moment. Son, I'm really sorry about this. Please enjoy your birthday. He gave me a small, embarrassed smile before hurrying after his mother. The manager turned to us. Manager, I apologize for the disruption. Your first round of drinks is on the house. After he left, my friends and I looked at each other in disbelief before bursting into laughter. Friend, well, happy birthday. That was certainly memorable. And it was. We ended up having a fantastic night, and the story of the bowling lane Karen became part of our group's lore, retold at every birthday gathering since. The best part? A month later, we returned for our regular bowling night and learned from a staff member that the woman had indeed tried to come back the following week, only to discover that someone had mysteriously reserved lanes. The bowling alley began to mysteriously reserve lanes 7 and 8 every Friday night for a private party, even when they sometimes remained empty. Sometimes petty revenge comes in the form of empty bowling lanes. Story 4. After 3 months of working double shifts at the distribution warehouse, I finally got promoted to shift supervisor. The pay bump wasn't huge, but it was enough to justify treating myself to something nice. I decided on the fancy all-you-can-eat buffet downtown that everyone had been raving about. It was one of those upscale places with carving stations, made-to-order pasta, and a chocolate fountain. The kind of place where they charge you $30 just to walk in the door. I'd been saving up for this, planning exactly what I wanted to try. The seafood station was my main target: crab legs and shrimp cocktail that I normally couldn't afford. But I was also looking forward to the prime rib and those little fancy desserts that are too pretty to eat but too delicious not to. I arrived during the lunch rush, but it wasn't too crowded. I paid my entrance fee and was escorted to a small table near the buffet area. Perfect location. I could people watch between trips to fill my plate. The hostess explained that the buffet was self-serve, but drinks would be brought by my server. My first plate was a sampling of appetizers, spring rolls, stuffed mushrooms, and some kind of fancy cheese cube wrapped in prosciutto. I was just finishing when I noticed a woman at the seafood station. She was wearing an expensive-looking cream-colored pantsuit and had that "I need to speak to the manager" haircut. You know, the one short in the back, longer in the front, highlighted within an inch of its life. I didn't think much of her until I went up for my second plate. This time I was focused on the seafood station. I carefully selected a few crab legs and was reaching for the cocktail sauce when I felt someone staring at me. It was Pantsuit Woman, giving me the side eye as she piled her plate with shrimp. I moved on to the carving station for some prime rib. As I was waiting my turn, I felt the telltale tickle in my nose that signals an oncoming sneeze. I quickly turned away from the food, sneezed into my elbow as my mother taught me, and excused myself to the nearest hand sanitizing station before continuing. I thought nothing of it until I returned to my table with my loaded plate. I had just picked up my fork when Pantsuit Woman appeared, standing over me with a server in tow. Woman. That's them. That's the person who sneezed all over the prime rib station. It's disgusting and unsanitary. I nearly choked on my water. She was pointing at me like I had committed some terrible crime. Me. Excuse me? I sneezed into my elbow, away from the food. I even used hand sanitizer afterward. The server looked uncomfortable, caught between customer service protocol and what was clearly a ridiculous complaint. Server. Ma'am, if you have concerns about food safety, I can certainly speak with the manager. Woman. You absolutely should. This person cross-contaminated the entire buffet line. I demand that all the food be replaced immediately, and this person should be removed from the restaurant. By now, other diners were starting to stare. I felt my face flush with embarrassment, but I wasn't going to let someone falsely accuse me like this. Me? That's completely untrue. I sneezed into my elbow, away from the food. There's literally a sneeze guard over the buffet dishes for this exact reason. The woman's eyes narrowed as she placed her hands on her hips. Woman, are you calling me a liar? I saw what I saw. You sneezed directly over the prime rib. It's people like you who spread disease without a care for others. At this point, a manager appeared. He was a tall, thin man with a name tag that read Assistant Manager. Assistant Manager. What seems to be the problem here? Before I could speak, the woman launched into her version of events. Woman. This person sneezed all over the food at the carving station. It's absolutely disgusting, and I demand that all the food be replaced. I'm also concerned about health code violations. My husband is an attorney, and he would be very interested to hear about this. The manager turned to me with a questioning look. Me? That's not what happened at all. I felt a sneeze coming on, turned away from the food, sneezed into my elbow, and then used hand sanitizer before touching anything else. The buffet has sneeze guards anyway, so even if I had sneezed toward the food, which I didn't, it would have been protected. The woman scoffed loudly. Woman, that's a blatant lie. I saw you sneeze directly over the prime rib. There were droplets everywhere. It's disgusting, and I want something done about it right now. The manager maintained his professional demeanor. Assistant manager, ma'am, I understand your concern for food safety. We take these matters very seriously. The good news is that we have security cameras covering all of our buffet stations precisely for situations like this. Let me review the footage, and we'll resolve this immediately. The woman's expression shifted from righteous indignation to something less certain, but she recovered quickly. Woman, fine, check the cameras. You'll see exactly what I described. The assistant manager stepped away, presumably to review the security footage. The woman remained standing by my table, arms crossed, occasionally making disgusted noises whenever I attempted to eat something from my plate. After about 5 minutes, the assistant manager returned with another, older man who had the air of someone in charge. General manager. Hello, I'm the general manager. We've reviewed our security footage from the past 30 minutes at the carving station. The woman smiled triumphantly. Woman, and I assume you'll be asking this person to leave now. The general manager's expression remained neutral. General manager, actually, ma'am, the footage clearly shows this customer turning away from the food, sneezing into their elbow, and then using the hand sanitizing station before returning to the buffet line. The woman's smile faltered. Woman, that's impossible. I saw. General manager, the footage also shows something else interesting. It appears that you visited the shrimp cocktail station twice, and both times you used the same plate. On your second visit, you dipped a partially eaten shrimp back into the cocktail sauce. The dining area went quiet. Several nearby diners stopped eating to watch the drama unfold. Woman, that's ridiculous. I would never. General manager, double dipping is explicitly against our hygiene policy, as stated on the signs at each station. It's actually a genuine food safety concern, unlike the false accusation you made against this customer. The woman's face had turned a shade of red that matched the cocktail sauce she had allegedly contaminated. Woman, do you know how much money I spend here? My family comes here at least twice a month. I can't believe you're treating a loyal customer this way. General manager, I apologize, but given the circumstances, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We'll refund your meal today, but we cannot tolerate customers who disregard our food safety policies and then make false accusations against others. The woman grabbed her designer purse from her table. Woman, this is outrageous. I'll never eat here again. I'll tell everyone I know about how poorly you treat your customers. As she stormed toward the exit, something unexpected happened. Several diners began to applaud. It started with one person and quickly spread throughout the restaurant. By the time she reached the door, there was a round of applause following her out. The general manager turned to me. General manager, I sincerely apologize for the disruption to your meal. Please enjoy the rest of your dining experience. It's on the house today. Me. Thank you. I appreciate that. An elderly couple at the next table leaned over. Elderly woman. Good for you for standing up for yourself, dear. Some people think they can bully others and get away with it. Elderly man. We've seen her in here before. Always complaining about something or other. It was about time someone called her bluff. I thanked them and returned to my meal, which somehow tasted even better than before. As I made my way back to the buffet for dessert, several people nodded approvingly or gave me a thumbs up. It wasn't the quiet, celebratory lunch I had planned, but watching an entitled person face the consequences of their actions turned out to be the perfect cherry on top of my promotion celebration. Sometimes justice is served right alongside the prime rib.